My name is Mark Shapsis, and I'm proud to say the president of the Metropolitan Business Network. Also a principal and executive managing director over at Studley, the commercial real estate firm. Want to welcome all of our guests and to our Metropolitan Business Network, which we call MBN 2013 Not-for-Profit event. It's actually our fourth event and obviously getting bigger as the years go on. So it's great to have all of you. And I want to welcome our speakers here. They're people that have that are going to be up here shortly speaking, and Perry will introduce them. I obviously very thrilled with the turnout. We have more than 75 guests from all different walks of the not-for-profit world, some board members, some staff people, and you're all very, very welcome. I want to give you 3 seconds on the MBN. The MBN actually is a prestigious New York City networking group. It's been around for 31 years, and very interesting how it works. We have nobody that competes in the room. We have about 35 members, everyone in different industries. And in order to get into the room, you have to be sponsored by a member. You then compete for the spot. So for example, we just brought a CPA firm in. We had a CPA firm with us for 25 years. And we brought a new firm in and went through a very rigorous process where all of our connections brought people forward. They then presented, they were interviewed, and it was probably about a 6 to 8 month process. So the point of the matter is, when they finally got in, we're bringing people in as though you were a company hiring someone in that industry. So they're very well vetted, top-notch in their field, and that's just to give you a flavor of how the MBN works and how we bring guests in. They're all senior owners or senior people at their firms, and as far as relationships, I mean, you're right here. This whole room, we're all connected to one another right now. So all part of the MBN family, and you know, I don't think you can underscore relationships enough. All of us people in this room, with members and guests, we all know that relationships are very, very important in being successful at what you do. Our mantra at the MBN is build relationships, build business, and I think everybody in this room can relate to that. I'd like to turn the program over to Perry and have him introduce the guests.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Perry Davis, and we have a firm in New York called Perry Davis Associates, which does fundraising support work and has done that since 1986. We're proud to know a number of you in this room as friends, as clients, and certainly the MBN members as dear friends and colleagues. And we're delighted that you're here. I always like to think about outcomes, and my hope for this morning is that you all leave this room having learned some important lessons and gotten some enlightenment. If a company in this room that's a member of MBN or a friend leaves and says, you know what, this idea of corporate philanthropy is something I should really take seriously, I have to really start such a program, that'll be phenomenal. And if those of you that are nonprofits say, I've learned a little bit of how to get into the corporate philanthropic world, I've done some things, I can share some ideas, and now I feel better about that and help my charity that way, that'll be fantastic as well. That's our goal for the morning, together with what Mark just said, which is the fact that we get to know each other. Just network and get to know each other, which is critical. Just 2 words by way of introduction. Philanthropy is in many ways a blessing. And it's a blessing of those of us, particularly in a business organization, who have made some success, have the ability to take the blessings we've gotten and convey them to others who may be in need. So on a personal level, I was blessed to be as chief fundraiser in the New York City school system for a number of years, and then work on the other end with David Rockefeller and the New York City Partnership and see how that end of philanthropy worked, and then in this business since '86 to be able to help a tremendous number of organizations and, as my wife says, be a midwife to some great ideas. We're never the ones who are see the actual program being developed, but we help it move along, and that to us is an incredibly important thing. So that's the blessings on a personal basis. The other blessing is my association with this organization, and philanthropy is a central part of MBN. Mark didn't say that, and I think it starts with Mark because he himself started a charity. That's critical. So many people in this room, and we meet every other Thursday here for breakfast and talk about business leads and talk about the hard things that are part of business life, but people in this room who I have gotten to know are members of boards, are providing pro bono services to nonprofit organizations, are serving as volunteers, are mentoring people. The amount of activities and words and support and dollars that flow in this room that have to do with the charitable world are tremendous. And this morning is an example of that philanthropy. We're taping this. It's going to go up on our website. And there will be an opportunity for people who want to learn that aren't in this room to be able to do so as well. It's part of what we do. We give tremendously, and we're very proud to have the people who are here this morning. Can I ask the panel to come up, and I'll introduce you, and we'll get right into the program. As you look at this panel, we obviously have the right blend and proportion of men and women. We also have a group that is balanced wonderfully from both sides of the philanthropic spectrum, the donor side and the recipient side, and these are really giant organizations and people who have done a tremendous amount in their fields, and you'll get to know them and hear what we're going to do. I'm going to introduce them, indicate what they're going to speak about and the questions I've given them in advance, and then hopefully we'll have a lot of time for Q&A after that. So let me begin with the introductions. Julie Gralsheimer has been at the Fresh Air Fund since 2002. She's Associate Director of Development, served previously as the Director of Volunteer Programs. Since 1877, the Fresh Air Fund, a non-for-profit organization, has provided free summer experiences in the country to more than 1.7 million New York City children from low-income communities. Julie graduated from Kenyon College with a BA in International Studies, received an MPA in Public and Nonprofit Management and Policy from NYU Wagner School. Next to Julie, Sister Paulette Lamonaco has made a distinctive impact on the lives of countless vulnerable New York City children and youth on the child welfare, education, and family support systems with which she interfaces as the Executive Director of Good Shepherd Services for the past 32 years. Under Sister Paulette's leadership, Good Shepherd has evolved from a small provider of out-of-home care to one of New York City's largest, most respected multi-service agencies. The sister is a respected leader at the city and state levels, in corporate and foundation boardrooms. She's recognized as a go-to person on youth-related issues, an honest broker, reasonable partner, and always accessible expert. Founding member of the Neighborhood Family Services Coalition, Paulette serves on numerous public and private boards, and we're delighted to have you and your experience to join us. On the Brown side of the panel, Richard and Susan. Richard Brown is a vice president in philanthropy at the American Express, where he oversees the company's global philanthropy programs under the historic preservation and leadership giving themes. Richard was a key presenter at the first ever White House Forum on Nonprofit Leadership, plays a lead role in the initiative on nonprofit talent and leadership. Previously the corporate secretary of Goldman Sachs Foundation, Richard was a leader in corporate philanthropy at AT&T Wireless, Toys R Us Children's Fund, Texaco Foundation, and Altria. He serves on a number of nonprofit boards and is a member of the Council on Foundations Corporate Committee. Graduate of Syracuse University, Mr. Brown received his MS in Organizational Change and Management at the New School University here in New York. Welcome, Richard. And Suzanne Ree Brown is Executive Director and Head of U.S. Philanthropy for Morgan Stanley. In her role, she oversees Community Affairs Department and manages Morgan Stanley Foundation with the Global Head of Philanthropy. She's also responsible for designing many of the firm's employee engagement programs, such as divisional philanthropy committees and year-round partners, charitable spending account, a unique matching program, U.S. regional grants, in addition to managing the Morgan Stanley Strategy Challenge, which is the firm's signature pro bono volunteer initiative for global sustainable finance group. Externally, Suzanne helps manage the ongoing relationship with Morgan Stanley's Children's Hospital and other partner organizations in keeping with Morgan Stanley's Global Alliance at the Children's Health Initiative. We had a grandson who was in the hospital very quickly and in and out for an emergency, and it was a phenomenal experience. So it's personal experience with the hospital. Her areas of expertise include fundraising, grant making, internal communications, employee engagement programs. She was selected as one of Morgan Stanley's 50 Rising Stars among female vice presidents in the United States. She received a BA in Environmental Studies and Sociology from St. Lawrence University in Canton, New York, Master's in Public Administration from New York's Wagner School. She lives in northern New Jersey and is expecting her first child, and lives with her husband in northern Jersey, expecting her first child, and congratulations. And we're ready to begin. What I told the panelists in advance is essentially there was very short questions that I wanted them to address, and each taking about 4 or 5 or 6 minutes in their response, and then take Q&A. So the questions are simple. On the corporate giving side, please, describe briefly your organization, but answer the question, why should a company have a corporate giving program? What's the benefits? What's the importance? Why did your company move in that direction? Both have long histories in that regard. And then a very important question for all of us to hear, how do you decide when you're looking at a raft of proposals and requests, where to put your money? Where do you invest? How do you make those investment and giving decisions? On the nonprofit side, if you would talk about a bit about your organization, but you're here because both of you have achieved success in receiving corporate dollars. The question is, how'd you do it? And what tips would you want to share that wouldn't deplete everything so you wouldn't get anything anymore? But what tips would you share with a room full of nonprofit organizations who are eager to hear? With that, I will think that the order will just simply start and go across. I'll ask Suzanne to go first, Richard, and then I'm this way, and I'll sit down.
Do you want the mic, or do you want us to come up to this?
Yeah, you can. There you go.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I guess the first question is why give? I think first and foremost, it's the right thing to do. In the business space, sometimes people are skeptical of when you answer that, but it is true. You are doing business in the community, and so you're taking, so you should also be giving back. Secondly, it is also expected by employees. We're not a manufacturing company, we're a financial services company, so our products are our people, so to speak, and they're the representation of the company. If you go out and you buy, if you buy a car and you buy a Toyota, Toyota is awful, and you could say you think the Toyota is awful. But then if you meet a Morgan Stanley employee, they are a product and you have a bad experience with them, it's a bad reputation for us as well. So we really focus on our employees, making sure that they are good citizens as well as the company, and that they're giving back. Since we spend a lot of time focusing on employee engagement, meaning how can we get our employees to give personally as well as through the company, make it easy for them. As you know, with a lot of employees, we do ask them to work long hours. People do work quite a bit. So we also feel that if you're dedicating that much time in the workplace, then we want to create that balance for you by offering volunteer opportunities in-house. Maybe we'll bring kids in and you can mentor them at the office. If you want to do a team building activity instead of going out and doing bowling, maybe you should go volunteer instead. So we're always looking for ways to engage employees. And then lastly, it's also a great development opportunity for employees as well. Is that better? Okay. Is when you're working in a job, so say you're in finance, you mainly work with employees in finance. You might have internal clients who might be in banking, etc. But that's the world you know. Versus if you're volunteering, you're sitting on a board, you're on a steering committee of an organization, you develop a lot of skill sets that you might not get to practice at work. So it's not just a great development opportunity to give back in the community, it's a development opportunity for our employees as well. So we really see that as win-win. Now, what do you look for? So I would say there's a lot of different ways of giving. There are misconceptions about corporate giving. I do a lot of informational interviews with people who are coming out of college or have been working but looking to transfer jobs. So they might be an investment banker 2 years out and say, I'm working crazy hours and I want to do something different. And I'll meet with them and they have this perception that, someone like Richard and I kind of sit down, we have a big pile of money, and then we go, I like that charity. I will give them 10,000. Or I want to give. Majority of our job is honestly administration, in the sense of developing programs that employees can participate in, making sure it happens. If you have an employee giving website, making sure you have a vendor that works. So there's a lot more kind of behind the scenes that are often forgotten about. We also, employees will also say, well, sounds like a good job because you are working at a not-for-profit setting, but you're at a for-profit. So I have to agree that is a great benefit. I do love knowing that there's an audience I'm trying to work with, and if I see that there's 30% participation who gave an employee giving campaign, and next year there's 35%, I can see that 5% increase and know that something happened there. Versus I think if you're doing a general fundraising, those types of metrics are a little harder to come by. So we're looking for ways to engage employees, so not just give money, but if we give the organization money, what will they do with it? Are there ways the employees could be educated about their cause? Are there ways to employees to join the board, join a committee, volunteer, apply their skills? So for example, we partner with some schools, and at first might go and have field day with the kids, and that's great. But the next level we'll say is, well, what about the teachers? Do they know how to use Excel? Would that be helpful? Are there employees who have that skill, who could easily take one afternoon, 2 hours, and give them a Excel training 101? How about the principal? Are they getting a report from the Department of Education? And if it's an Excel spreadsheets, can our employees help them make it into a pretty pie chart or something else that will make them easier to understand? So we're always looking for one way to up the engagement, so not just the superficial, not to say giving is just superficial, but there's a lot more that companies have to offer in our skills besides our dollars, so that's kind of where we're going at. Let's see. We also look at, obviously, the focus and the mission. We would love to give to all the organizations that come to us, but it's really impossible to manage with the employee population of 55,000. So we do have to have some structure and strategy in how we give. So a lot of the introductions that we get for the smaller nonprofits is through employees. So if someone is involved with them as a volunteer, then we can help them post volunteer opportunities on the website. They get employees who volunteer, then they can apply for a grant through the foundation. There's, say, 5 employees that volunteer and they love it. Then for Global Volunteer Month, we might say, hey, they might be a good partner. Can you take 50 employees in June? We'll do that. And it kind of snowballs. So I think Julie and Good Shepherd as well as Fresh Air Fund are 2 of our partners as well, and can kind of maybe talk about how our relationships have strengthened over time. And then lastly is, what do we look for in nonprofits? Obviously, the reputation of the organization. If you're giving money to the organization, you want to make sure that they are doing the right thing with it. You look at their financials, you look at their leadership, but more importantly, what are we trying to get? What impact do we want to make? So if we're looking for a national partner, obviously we're going to be looking for an organization with national presence where we have our employees. If we're looking for a specific issue and we say we want to change the dial in education, then we want to find an organization that is kind of known for being able to do that. So there is strategy in giving, not to say that there aren't other kind of sporadic giving that happens across the firm, but that's usually within the business units for client relationships. So if you're a vendor, you get tapped by other clients and say, someone so-and-so is being honored at this event, will you support us by buying a table? So that definitely happens as well. But from my department's perspective, we are more strategic and say children's health is our focus area, and that's where we're investing most of our dollars, and also supporting our employees in their causes. Okay, Richard.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate being here and appreciate the invitation from Perry, so thank you. We at American Express are longtime supporters of causes in New York, and I like to tell the story that back when the Statue of Liberty was being brought over from France, American Express employees were actually involved in helping to fundraise for the pedestal that the statue sits on. The Lady Liberty was a gift from France, but the pedestal didn't come with it. So it was a very robust fundraising campaign that took place during that time frame, and American Express employees in the company actually provided some of the support to help build the pedestal. And I also was listening to Mark earlier in terms of the competitiveness of getting into this organization, and wondered what was the official card of the organization, whether American Express might become that. I think this issue of corporate giving has evolved quite a bit over the years. I've actually been in philanthropy now. At all those different companies, I was in philanthropy. And so it's 25 years this year that I've been a corporate grant maker, and philanthropy has really evolved over that time period. And it's almost as if philanthropy is now an expectation of corporations. And it's an expectation that we've really have earned in terms of being good at it, being very responsive. And so in this day and age, companies, particularly companies like ours, which are large publicly traded companies, there is an expectation that companies give back. There is an expectation that they are robust in their giving, and that they have the ability to identify programs in different parts of the community to provide support for. And so we are very eager to demonstrate to the communities. And I think in terms of organizations in this room that are thinking about developing a corporate philanthropy program, there's a significant amount of benefit from actually doing so. And I think that one of them is what was mentioned earlier by Suzanne, and that is the idea of engaging employees. The idea of employee engagement has really evolved dramatically over the last 25 years. It was something that we were doing in the beginning when I first started in philanthropy, but it's become so critical to corporate givers. The idea of involving employees in philanthropy, involving them in not just providing support through what was once called the United Way campaign, or now the Workplace campaign, but actually donating their time. And it's really the idea of donating time that has grown so very significantly over the years. In this area that was mentioned, the idea of pro bono consulting has been something that has really taken off. And we at American Express have recently created a program, a pro bono consulting firm, where we're actually leveraging the expertise of our employees in a way that we've never had before. We actually have teams of folks working with nonprofits here in New York City on marketing, on branding, on strategic planning, on memberships, things of that nature, which we feel we're pretty good at. I mean, our employees are quite good at painting murals and filling libraries with books. But if you really want to leverage the talent of a company, is you actually find what they're really good at, the things that they're known for in the community, and leverage those talents. And so we're doing that now with our pro bono. And I think that's another thing that smaller companies can certainly do, and many of you may already be doing, is that you can leverage the talent of your employees. And that really does have a significant benefit to the organizations that you're working with. Because if they have to pay for that from some other source, if you're providing it for free, they can redirect those funds somewhere else. And so you, in essence, are making a grant to them with the talent of your employees. So I can't underscore that enough. For us, in reference to this issue of how we select organizations, I've had a mantra that I've followed over the last number of years, which is focus equals impact. Over the years, this issue of strategic grant making has become very critical to a company like ours. So when I first started out, it was more reaction to grants that came in. We would get proposals over the transom, and we would react to them. Some were appealing, some were not so. If the grant proposal came from the CEO or this executive team, we're going to fund that. If it was something that came in and we had no idea who this person was who's sending it, or if they sent it to a may concern, more than likely they weren't going to get any funding. Now we're very specific. We have essentially 3 focus areas at American Express: historic preservation, leadership development, and community service. And I just want to do a plug for a program that we're doing in historic preservation. We actually have a program in D.C. That started yesterday called Partners in Preservation, where you can vote for your favorite historical sites in D.C. So if you check out www.partnersinpreservation.com, you can actually vote for your favorite site. And this was a program. The PIP program was actually the first of the crowdsourcing programs that existed. So there's been a lot of folks who have taken on this program, like Chase and PepsiCo and others, Amazon, I think Google as well. But we actually started this program back in 2006 and really were the pioneers in the whole area of crowdsourcing. And so we focus in these 3 areas: historic preservation, leadership development, and community service. And we essentially receive proposals and vet them against our guidelines, which are posted on our website. And we will entertain proposals that come in. If your organization is involved in an effort that lines up against these 3 areas, there's a chance that you're going to get funding. I mean, I'm sorry, further back? Oh, say. So there's a chance that you can get funding. The thing about our two of our focus areas, community service and leadership development, is that they're not issue specific. They're issue agnostic, which means that there's no one type of organization that we're going to be giving to. So it's not just education. It's not just healthcare. It's not just the environment. It's any organization that has a program that focuses on leadership development, for instance, that could be in any type of discipline, is actually eligible for funding. So we have the opportunity to fund in a whole host of different areas through these 3 focus areas. So I think I'm going to stop there and pass it over to the folks there.
I'm so rather impressed by the speakers on the panel and have enjoyed the opportunity to meet so many MBN members this morning. I look forward to sharing with you how the Fresh Air Fund has successfully developed corporate partnerships with close to 100 New York City companies. I'd first also like to share we have partnerships with over 100 New York City-based community organizations and nonprofits, including Good Shepherd Services, who more years than I know, who help us sign up our children for free summer programs. And that way we can direct our resources to serving children. So thank you very much for that work for many years. For those of you not familiar with the Fresh Air Fund, since 1877, we have provided more than 1.7 million low-income children with free summer experiences, either staying with host families in the country or visiting one of our 5 camps on our 2,000-acre property in upstate New York. We also have year-round tutoring and mentoring programs and leadership programs, which I feel we'll be telling Amex about shortly. We have just started a new College Connections program that will provide our high school students with the support they need to apply to, and more importantly, graduate from college. In my over 10 years at the Fresh Air Fund, I've been fortunate to develop numerous corporate partnerships, including those with Morgan Stanley, whose volunteers have been incredibly engaged with our programs, as well as Estee Lauder, Cravath, Con Ed, ESPN, Disney, 17 Magazine, Goldman, to name a few. These diverse companies offer a range of opportunities to our organization, and hopefully soon we can add Amex to the list. Just plugging away here. I spent my first few years at the Fresh Air Fund developing and expanding our volunteer program. I now focus on major gifts and oversee our digital and direct mail campaigns, as well as our volunteer programs. We do have select cause-related marketing corporate partnerships, previously including a friendship shoe with Payless, and now, for example, partner with the company Go-Go Squeeze. However, the majority of our partnerships and subsequent grants have developed from our volunteer program. I was very lucky that when I started running our volunteer program, I was able to, it was right around the same time that the corporate social responsibility trend was investing in nonprofits where their employees were engaged. So jumped right on that bandwagon. And I do recognize that having a structured volunteer program is not possible for all nonprofits. The Fresh Air Fund has been very fortunate to have a staff member in our development department dedicated to our volunteer program. It's really important to only take on what you have the capacity to do. Both of our partners here, have mentioned how important it is, your reputation. And so if you only take on what you can truly handle and what your staff is excited to handle, then you can build from there slowly, as Sue mentioned. We have built. We now, I don't know how slowly, but we now have over 1,000 volunteers annually, including 130 weekly tutors and mentors at our Midtown office, just a few blocks from here, from 6 to 8 p.m. in the evening, if anyone's interested in learning more. We also have about 100 corporate team projects each year. Our corporate-friendly projects include job shadowings, where the students in our career awareness program visit companies to learn more about future careers and the education they'll need in order to attain those careers. We have stuffing nights to help with mailings. Not every volunteer necessarily is comfortable volunteering directly with children, but they want to help our cause. And we have thousands of applications and thousands of benefit invitations and a lot more paper than I care to admit going through our office. And, well, not all of our parents or children do have computer access, and it is sometimes necessary. And we also have a fun opportunity, for example, volunteering at camp as a counselor for a day. Who doesn't want to go back to camp for a day? Regardless, and the food's gotten a little bit better, regardless of an organization's mission, in order to develop strong corporate support, it's important to keep in mind a word I've used many times this morning: partnership. We consider our volunteers and corporate supporters true partners. From a logistics perspective, we manage expectations for volunteer projects and, really importantly, value our volunteers' time and work hard to prepare for them. We don't ever solicit our volunteers or put them on a mailing list. In addition to helping with a specific project, we consider our time with volunteers as a PR opportunity. To provide 2 examples of how partnerships can develop when you least expect it, if you're ready to take advantage of the opportunity, and if you remember that not all your volunteers, all your volunteers, not just your corporate ones, are ambassadors to the broader community. We now have had a weekly mentoring program for high school students at Google for over 5 years, And my introduction to Google was actually through a Volunteer in Your Cares project. At the time, I had no idea where they worked. We built a relationship, as MBN does, and it went from there. We had a great relationship with another partner, Disney. For years, they traditionally volunteered at the first bus departure. Each summer, we have volunteers help send our kids off on buses to camp, and they helped with a few other small-scale projects. We were able to leverage that relationship and now have our students visit Eyewitness News to learn about careers and have an annual ESPN Day at camp with 100 volunteers, as Disney is the parent company for both ABC and ESPN. I'll leave you with one small tip. I always ask about how someone heard about us, and the first is word of mouth. I'm very fortunate to work for a well-known, regarded, quite old organization. However, the tip is that our phrasing of corporate team, notice team, corporate, opportunities on our website has led us to typically appear very high on Google searches. Above all, remember your volunteers need to be thanked, recognized, appreciated, made aware of the impact they have on your organization, and be doing work that is integral to what you do. For those of you in the corporate sector, I ask you to consider and treat nonprofits like a client. Listen, communicate, be flexible, and remember it's a partnership. Thank you.
So it's never easy to be the fourth speaker because I think just about everything has been said. But let me just start by saying that we have been really blessed to work with every one of the panelists in various different ways, either through the leadership development program that we've developed with American Express, or our corporate volunteers, and also giving through Morgan Stanley, and of course the Fresh Air Fund. So how did it all start? You know, as was mentioned, I've been director for a really long time at Good Shepherd, so it's sort of hard for me to even turn back the clock and remember when we first started with our corporate work. But I believe it started with a board member. And it started actually in two ways. It was a board member from Credit Suisse. And we began slowly. They helped us with our marketing strategy. Later on, they helped us with SharePoint and helped us think about how we could use SharePoint in the agency. It went, of course, to grants, and then it went to volunteers. Now, I have to say that many years ago, when I was just struggling to keep the lights on and get enough money to do basic services, I thought that volunteers were going to be a lot of work. And I just want to say that they are a lot of work. But there is a way to really manage it. And so I would just like to talk a little bit about that. But first, to step back and just give you a little history or a little knowledge about Good Shepherd Services. We started out running residential programs for young people who are involved in the foster care system. We have foster homes. We have young people involved in the juvenile justice system who live with us. But then we became convinced that if we could move into communities of high need, that we could provide a whole host of services that would strengthen families and young people and not have them need to leave home. So that took us into the communities, the Central Bronx, Red Hook, Brooklyn, East New York, and Bed-Stuy, all neighborhoods of tremendous high need, and all neighborhoods that have a lot of young people who have amazing opportunities if there are people who can help them realize those opportunities. So a lot of our work is done in the New York City public school system. So we have 22 after-school programs. We also work with young people who are, the new term is overaged and undercredited. The White House is calling these young people opportunity youth. And I think that's a much better way of conceptualizing the fact that these are young people who have really struggled because they have under-resourced families and live in under-resourced communities. So we have ample room for volunteer activities today. And it was only when we realized that in order to have a successful volunteer program that we needed to have a designated people on both ends. A designated person on the Good Shepherd staff who was our corporate relationships person, and a designated person to do the match and to ensure that at the other end, at the corporate end that there's a clear understanding of what our needs are. So, for example, one of our great needs is to find people who are interested in going out to East New York. Now, I'm not going to ask anyone to raise their hands here, but East New York is a schlep from Manhattan, and so is Red Hook, that has very little public transportation. And so there needs to be an understanding on the part of the corporate folks of what the real needs are in for the organization. So one of the ways that we've been able to get around that is to invite our young people to come into Manhattan. So we have a 22-year-old mentoring program with E&Y, where young people from Stevenson High School, way on the other side of the Bronx, come regularly and are paired up with mentors who help them with life skills, resume writing. Just coming into the E&Y building and Times Square is an amazing experience for our young people. Just coming into the UBS building, which currently has a whole host of artwork from several of our after-school programs in Brooklyn and in the Bronx that are framed and hanging in their in their Midtown office. So just those experiences, not only for our young people, but also for their families, are just life-changing for them because it opens up new possibilities for them. We have a corporate relationship with a hotel chain. And several times a year, our young people are invited in and given a day where they can come to understand all the different ways, all the different job opportunities there are in a hotel. From standing behind the concierge desk to maybe helping out with room service, the kitchen. There are just so many opportunities, and it's such a lovely environment, especially the hotels here in New York City. Financial literacy is a huge, huge need for our young people. I can't tell you how important that is. The whole world of money management is something that often they have not experienced. We have had relationships on a more personal level where we have a mentoring coordinator. So the mentoring coordinator's role is to match an individual with a young person. It might be a young person in foster care, it might be a young person in one of our community-based programs, but there has to be a good match, and there has to be somebody who brokers that match, who trains the volunteer to understand what they're going to expect, and then who continues to ensure that the relationship is going well. As has been said so many times this morning, it's all about relationships and partnerships. So at Good Shepherd, and we serve 27,000 individuals, young people and families a year, so it's a really large number. We have 3 people who do this as a full-time job: a mentoring coordinator, our corporate relations person, and then another special person for the E&Y relationship, which they support. So this is another way to think about corporate relationships. Sometimes a firm will decide that they are interested in a really strong relationship, and so their contribution to Good Shepherd will be to help support someone who can mentor and broker that relationship and who is familiar with the requirements of the firm as well as the requirements of the organization. So for all of you out there who are trying to develop these fabulous relationships, often they do start with board members, then they move to research. As Richard said, there has to be a match between what the organization needs and what the corporation is offering. And so you have to really do your homework, because otherwise you're just wasting paper. And not only that, but it speaks to the corporation of an agency that really isn't doing their homework. And so then they begin to wonder, well, then are they really going to follow up if we set up a volunteer program? Small businesses are extremely valuable because many of the young people in our city are struggling to finish high school. And the way that they are going to finish high school often is if they have an internship or if they have a volunteer experience where they can work. And so the idea of coming into a small business where there could be a one-to-one relationship with an individual who notices if they're dressed properly, if they are looking happy, if they're not coming for 3 days in a row, those kinds of mentoring experiences, as well as the concrete tasks that they'll be engaged in, open up real possibilities for our young people and really help motivate them to finish school, to think about a training program or a post-secondary degree of some kind. And so these mentoring, but at a place of work, relationships are extremely important. I think I've touched on most of the items that have not been mentioned before. I want to reiterate the importance of saying thank you and the importance of appreciating that the volunteer experience, as well as the financial experience, the financial remuneration that a nonprofit receives, are really invaluable. And in order to keep the relationship going, as we all know, we all like to be thanked over and over again. And so you are making a difference in both an agency and also in the lives of young people. And so it's so important to really acknowledge that. Thank you.
Thank you all. I just want to say one personal statement about a relationship with American Express that goes back to my days with the New York City school system. One of my most prized possessions is an annual report of the American Express company that has on its cover, given out to all of its shareholders and anybody else, a picture of students in a classroom in their Academy of Hospitality. It's a program I helped start when a fellow by the name of Sandy Weil and his very young associate Jamie Dimon were there, and I met with him with our chancellor at the time, and that program started. But that didn't appear on your philanthropic report. The cover picture was on your corporate report, and that's an example of how companies feel when they get a sense of gratitude, and how it helps everybody feel good about the company they're involved with. I just had to give you that one piece. We're going to take a few questions. We will do introductions for members. Mark will handle that, and introductions of our guests. And then one of the most important parts of this meeting will be when Mark says, thank you everybody for coming. And if we have 15, 20 minutes at that point free and you get to talk to each other, that's critical. So I'm only, I think, going to take 4 questions from the audience, and then you can ask your questions at that time. We've got a mic that I will pass along to people who want to ask the questions. But I'm going to just ask it this way. I would love to have a question first directed at the corporate side, the next question after that on the nonprofit side. Of course, you can mix it up, but if we can do that, that would be terrific.
Thank you for sharing your experiences. That was phenomenal and so interesting. I had a question for Richard and Suzanne. You both spoke about what an important role your employees play in the philanthropic decisions that your businesses make. And I think it's interesting because I think it's increasingly become a major driver of the causes that various companies support. In that same vein, I'm interested to know, what kind of a discourse do you feel you have with your consumers about social cause and about sort of philanthropic pursuits, and how does that impact both the causes that you choose to support and the way in which you support them?
That's a good question, because we are all about our card members, and I think we're the only card out there that puts the date, the year that you actually became members of American Express. And I could probably ask some folks in this room what their membership date was, and they probably would be able to tell me. Mine is 1984. This issue was actually something that actually helped create a program that we started. It wasn't philanthropic, it was actually out of our marketing. So you may recall the Members Project that took place back in the mid-2000, 2006, I believe, is when that program, or 2007 when it was kicked off. That program was really put in place as a way to engage our members. Those are our consumers. Those are the folks who are our customers. And so this program was put into place because we felt that our members wanted to see our company do something to leverage the company's great brand, to leverage its resources to support community, because we felt that our members wanted to see our company involved more closely with nonprofit organizations and the work that they do. So that was a direct link between what we wanted to do as a company and what we felt our consumers were interested in doing. So that was our response to the whole issue of directing our resources towards the consumers.
For Morgan Stanley, I would say that's a little different because our clients are going to be other institutions and companies, and you might have a Morgan Stanley financial advisor, but it's unlikely they're going to choose Morgan Stanley over Merrill Lynch or another financial services because of our philanthropic effort. I think we really focus. Giving back is one of our 4 company core values, so we really do try to live by that. So of course, if clients or customers ask about giving, and there will be giving that occurs, but we don't necessarily see it as part of our bigger philanthropic strategy. We see it as if our employees are philanthropic and giving back, and the company culture is that way. That is how we kind of emulate that importance. So in our case, it doesn't necessarily apply unless you're going to say, we do get some clients who might say, if you don't give 10,000 to my gala, then I'm going to go switch to another financial advisor. But in that case, we say if you're going to choose someone over that versus the quality of the product we're offering you, then it might not be a good match anyway. So.
Question for nonprofit? Back there. Is a microphone's coming right there.
Thank you. I have a question for Sister Paulette. I'm Ralph Siciliano, board chair of Little Sisters Family Health Service. And what I didn't hear a lot talked about this morning, and I thought was the path toward corporate giving, was finding board members from corporations to sit on your board. Is that important, or and have you done it, and how do you get people from corporations to sit on your board?
Yeah, actually, that is a very important piece to corporate philanthropy, but not necessarily the only piece. So I think it really starts with looking at corporations' websites and looking to see if, in fact, they have a program. There are some organizations that literally have programs that train their employees to become board members, and then to kind of make yourself known. There are also organizations that will help make a match. Now, this woman is going to kill me for making this announcement out loud today, but there is a small organization called Board Assist that helps link people who want to give back with nonprofits. I think the United Way also does that. I mean, there are a number of programs here, organizations here in the city who have, as part of their mission, making that link. And then it's really important to have very clear expectations for board members once they do come on, so that they really understand that, the 3 T's, time, talent, and treasure. And to be really clear in each one of those areas and what the expectation of a board member will be.
Another question?
Hi, Sharon Duke. I'm the director of AIDS Service Center in New York City, and we serve folks with HIV and other chronic conditions. And I guess 2 things. One, I think one of the reasons that a lot of not-for-profits are here today is because we would love to add corporate members to our boards, and I think that that kind of public-private partnership is of critical importance to not-for-profits. And while you can do your research, I also think that you have to look at the relationships that you have. And so in our organization, we've banked with Chase for 20 years. So part of my banking relationship is that they always have to assign a board member to be on our board who is not my relationship partner, but is somewhere else within the bank. And that's a relationship that we have had over 20 years. So I think nonprofits can look to their corporate partners and vendors. But certainly, if you, Amex and Morgan Stanley, have opportunities for your folks to join boards, or if there's a way for organizations to submit profiles of their agency for some board matching within your employees. I think that would be a terrific thing to do through MBN. And then on the flip side, for Good Shepherd, it sounds to me like, unlike the kids of the Fresh Air Fund, who of course you want to help a child, that's a product of the not-for-profit that's an easier sell than a homeless ex-addict, ex-offender who lives in Red Hook or East New York. And so for some of us who have that population that is less easy to market for public giving, I'd like to hear, how do you strategize about the types of services that you provide to create corporate volunteer opportunities that are not scary?
So as I mentioned, we have really a range of programs. But first of all, I think that you have to believe that your clients, your program participants, have the enormous potential that we in the nonprofit world believe that they all have. And then I think it really is a relationship building job, a one-to-one relationship building. And it can start out in a very simple way. You can have a group activity. So for example, we participate in planting gardens, in taking young people to a sports event, or, we're always looking for tickets. So when the corporation or the business sees that the young people that we're working with are treated by us with dignity and respect and are not labeled. And, we don't say, well, we're bringing you a bunch of delinquent kids today. We're bringing you young people who have, or the homeless, or somebody who's HIV, whatever the situation is. But we present them in a way that enables the corporation, the business, to look at them with a fresh set of eyes. And I think that that is part of the nonprofit's responsibility, because people are people. And we all have in our families and acquaintances, we all have people who we wish were living a different kind of a life than what they are, either sometimes because of an addiction or an illness, or sometimes because they are who they are. We all have those kind of people. We all know them. So how do we present them? It's the same thing. It's really finding opportunities where the labels can disappear and the person can shine through. And I find that no matter how challenging our young people are or can be, or some of the adults that we work with, when they are in an opportunity where they are exposed to something new and interesting and that broadens their horizons, it's hard for them to not appreciate it.
Issue of brand enhancement in corporations is for a company like mine is critical. I would say that it's just as critical than nonprofit to support and to have someone who is working on your brand. Sister Paulette has a phenomenal brand. Not only her own brand, but Good Shepherds is a phenomenal brand. And so I didn't hesitate to partner with Sister Paulette when she brought this opportunity to us, because it was within our focus area and it was supporting a very needed issue in our community. And Sister Paulette is a known person in the community. She's got a phenomenal reputation, and she brings along with her an organization that has a phenomenal brand.
Well, thank you. Does that mean I reapply?
I said 4 questions, but I really want to get to the introductions, and for all of you to have some chance to question. But all your questions can be brought up here. I want to do 2 things. It'll take 1 second, which is to thank the committee that worked very hard with me in putting this event together. I think Mark was going to do that, but I've got to do it because they were my committee and they were fantastic. Neil Fleischman, Jeff Ledette, Ellen Rothschild, Michael Lenton, Avery Fuchs, and thank you, Debbie, for all the support service as well. Tremendous help. Really appreciate it. And we all got the wisdom. Now go and use it. Thank you. Please thank the panel. Phenomenal job.
Okay, yes, I do want to thank the panel. It was wonderful. Definitely got the wheels turning. I know being involved with not-for-profit on a personal level, there's nothing like getting involved and helping out and raising money or doing whatever you can. It's really a special feeling. So definitely urge all of the people to get more involved with not-for-profits.